Revolution Network, our mission is healthy, ethical, sustainable food for all. We want kids to learn about healthy food in school. We want doctors to learn how nutrition impacts health in medical school. We want the routine use of antibiotics banned from factory farms. We want a world where everyone, regardless of their ethnic or economic background, has knowledge of and access to healthy food for their family. We want a world in which heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, obesity, and diabetes are rare, and in which vibrant health is the norm. We're spreading the word, and we're standing for change. And with every empowerment package purchased, we make a donation to Trees for the Future, so they can plant another organic fruit or nut tree in a low-income community. Join this movement and stand with us for a real food revolution. Hello everybody, I'm Ocean Robbins. So excited that in about 14 minutes we will begin our broadcast of episode 7 of the Food Revolution Summit docuseries. This is our second to last day in the summit, but it is certainly not nearing the end of our work together. If you're being inspired, if you're feeling a sense of hope or a calling or a purpose or possibility for your life, I want you to know we are just getting started together. Today our focus is nutrition. Facts, fads, and essential nutrients. Mastering your nutritional needs. Today we're going to cut through confusion about nutrition. There's so many fads and trends and conflicting headlines, it can be hard to know what your body really needs. In today's episode, we will unpack the truth about protein and soy, about gluten and omega-3s, and a lot more. We're going to look at supplements and what might actually help and what might not be so helpful. You'll also learn about foods that hijack your hunger cues, about the essential nutrient most people are missing out on, and you're going to get grounded science so that you can make food choices that really support your health and your well-being. As we go through the day, please continue posting and engaging in the comment section on our broadcast page. You can share your takeaways, your learnings, your breakthroughs, what you're hearing that you want to share with others, what this means in your life, and of course your questions. Christine said, a great way to stay active, referring to yesterday's focus, is to join fitness classes at your gym or at your local parks and recreation center. You get the best of both worlds, going solo and joining in with a group of like-minded individuals. My biggest takeaways from the fitness episode were, what's the point in being alive if you're not going to enjoy your life? And would you rather spend your 80th birthday on a cruise ship or the like, or in a nursing home? I'm 60 now and exercise is non-negotiable. Thank you for such great information. Christine, thank you for being here. I love those takeaways, and I'm right with you. Speaking of cruise ships, there is a cruise ship called the Holistic Holiday at Sea, and I'm glad to have been on there several years in a row. Many of our speakers join, and it is a fun place to eat awesome, healthy food and get saturated in health-boosting wisdom. Stay on the FRN email list, and we will make sure to tell you about it when it opens for enrollment. It's going through the Caribbean in March of 2026. Fun times. Kate said, hi, Ocean. Since I started educating myself with the resources that Food Revolution offers, first with your lovely dad and now with you, I feel I've come out of the dark ages and am being enlightened. Of course, now all I have to do is absorb all that I'm learning and act upon it. Yours in profound thanks. Thank you, Kate. So glad you're here with us. Coming out of the dark ages and being enlightened sounds like a really positive step. And you know, it's so interesting as you talked about that now it's about action, right? That's so true. At the end of the day, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, they don't care a heck of a lot what you know. They really care what you eat and how you live. It is, at the end of the day, what we do that matters. But here's the thing. Without knowledge, you won't know what actions to take. And without hope, you won't be inspired to actually do something. So I think knowledge and hope kind of like open the door and tell you which door is a good door. And then it's up to you to walk through that door and keep moving towards that new life. And that, at the end of the day, is what we're all about here. Rose said, love the summit. I've struggled with weight my whole life. Every time I try to incorporate beans, lentils, etc., my weight shoots up. The only thing that seems to work is a low-carb diet. So Ro, thank you for being here and for sharing so honestly. It can be super frustrating if you feel like you're doing the right things and you add in beans and lentils and eat for health and your weight goes up. And you're not alone in that experience, and I want to honor your perseverance to keep on trying and exploring. Sometimes when we shift to plant-based foods like legumes, especially after being on a low-carb diet, the body needs a little time to adjust. There can be water retention from restored glycogen stores. There can be changes in gut bacteria and even temporary bloating, all of which can look like weight gain, but aren't necessarily fat gain. Beans and lentils are rich in fiber and resistant starch, which help them support long-term satiety. They support blood sugar balance, and they even support fat metabolism. So the key might be to go slow, support your digestion, and give your body a chance to adapt. Low carb might deliver quick weight loss wins, but whole foods, plant-based eating, when done right, can nourish your body in a sustainable and healing way. A lot of people move off of low-carb diets and start adding back more than beans and lentils and vegetables. They often start adding some processed carbs too. I'm not saying that's the case for you, but I am saying that a lot of people, when they move off of keto, bring in the refined carbs again, and yes, their weight will shoot up. But if you really stick with whole foods and lots of vegetables, and you're stringent about that, steering clear of added sugars, and also steering clear of flour and flour products like bread, then I will say statistically you're unlikely to find a lot of weight gain that sustains. That said, for anybody who is struggling with being the author of their own food life, who finds yourself perhaps on the wrong end of an empty bag of cookies or potato chips a little too often, maybe you find yourself obsessing about food, feeling compulsive, feeling out of control, feeling like you aren't always able to eat in your own best interest even when you know what you want to do, I want to tell you about a program that I think is the best for weight loss. And it's from Dr. Susan Pierce Thompson, a dear friend of mine. It's called Bright Line Eating. It's revolutionary. It is research-backed. It is more effective than GLP-1 drugs in terms of the research studies that have been done on it that have been published in peer-reviewed journals. And it helps you to be more the author of your food life and more empowered in your journey and to make healthier long-term choices without spending $10,000 a year on drugs. So Bright Line Eating is the program. If you want to learn more about it, they have a food quiz you can take that lets you know if you're susceptible to food addiction, and it's kind of like an entry point into their ecosystem. If you go to foodrevolution.org/food quiz, you can learn more. Again, that's foodrevolution.org/food quiz. And the book Bright Line Eating is also a great resource. Friends, if you just joined us, we'll be starting episode 7 in about 7 minutes. I'm Ocean Robbins, your host, welcoming you. And as we move through the day, please continue posting and engaging in the comment section on the broadcast page. After each episode, I'll be on live with you again to share more of the comments and also to answer questions. Deb wrote, Ocean, thank you for your wonderful work. It's been a tremendous blessing to me over the years. So sorry for the loss of your dad. He was a very special man, and I've learned so much from him. My husband was diagnosed with multiple myeloma 4 years ago. We are very blessed in that he had carticel transplant a year and a half ago, and his multiple myeloma is under control. However, over the 4 years, he did have quite a bit of chemo and bone marrow transplant. I'm very concerned about the long-term effects that the chemo may have on his body. I do try to make sure that I feed us a rainbow of vegetables every day. However, I have a question. I tried using a vegan whole foods plant-based diet, but it seemed as though I couldn't get enough protein for my husband. He was becoming very fatigued. I added animal protein back into our diet. I do try to use organic grass-fed, and this seemed to help his energy level. He's feeling more like himself again. Does this mean that his body will always need animal protein? How can I make sure he gets the protein his body needs so that he can continue to recover? Well, Deb, first of all, thank you for your kind words and for the love and care you're pouring into your husband's healing journey. I'm touched by your message, and I'm grateful that my dad's work meant something to you. It's encouraging to hear that your husband is doing well after his carticel transplant. And you asked an important question about protein. So it may not be that your husband's body specifically needs animal protein, but rather he may not have been getting enough total protein on the version of a plant-based diet that you all were trying. After intense treatments like chemo and a bone marrow transplant, the body often has increased needs for protein in order to rebuild strength and support the immune system and recover. The good news is that a well-planned, whole foods, plant-rich diet can provide plenty of protein. It just takes a bit of intention. So focusing on foods like lentils and chickpeas and tofu and tempeh and edamame, as well as quinoa and hemp seeds and chia seeds and oats and nuts and peanut butter, even vegetables, these can all contribute to daily protein needs. If your husband is open to it, adding a clean plant-based protein powder, like one made from pea or hemp or a blend of sources, could also be a helpful way to boost intake if you're trying to not rely on animal products. That said, I want to affirm how wise and caring it is that you've both been listening to his body. If including some organic grass-fed animal protein is helpful to him, helps him be more strong and energized, that's valid information. And we respect and love people wherever they are on the journey. It's not about signing some kind of purity pact or having a fundamentalist ideology. It's about doing what's most supportive and makes the most sense given your values, your integrity, your well-being, and what your lived experience is. There are some real benefits to leaning more plant-based whenever possible, like lower levels of TMAO, which is a compound that's linked to cardiovascular risk. You want to get more phytonutrients and anti-inflammatory compounds that can support healing that are found in plant foods. So whether your husband continues with some animal products or chooses to shift towards more plant-rich protein sources, the heart of it is what you're already doing, feeding him with love and attention and care. That matters more than anything. Pam said, "Dear Ocean, I've been enthralled with every day's episode so far. God bless you and the work you're doing. I'm a foodie and love to feed others with super tasty, delicious food, so my challenge is to continue this using healthy, whole food, plant-based ingredients. My husband is a prostate cancer survivor and my son has celiac disease. I'm hoping to share this information with both of them, but I anticipate some resistance. What's your suggestion on sharing and cooking for others who would rather just continue eating the way they want to?" Well, Pam, thank you so much for your beautiful message and for your passion for feeding your loved ones with love and flavor. And I love that you want to share what you're learning, especially when it could help the people you love the most in the world. When it comes to resistance, I have found that pushing rarely works, but inviting can open doors, sometimes. You may want to start with what you know they love and find ways to upgrade meals they already like with whole foods, plant-based ingredients. For example, if they like tacos, then try them out with seasoned lentils or walnut taco meat or a tofu sour cream and generous guacamole. If it's a pasta, you might want to try gluten-free rice noodles with a rice cashew cream sauce or a tomato sauce that's got some Beyond Meat crumbles or tempeh crumbles with some sautéed vegetables in there. Lead with flavor more than lectures and let them see how delicious, healthy food can be. And if they don't like something, try something else and maybe eventually you'll find something they like and you can build on that. Make it again once a week and then add from there. Sometimes the most powerful influence comes not from trying to convince somebody, but from just living the change with your own joy and energy and integrity. You can ask them to support you in what works for you, and you can respect them in what works for them, and then you can gently open doors and invite them to try stuff. You're planting seeds. You never know what will sprout, so keep living your well-being, sharing from the heart when it's welcomed, and showing your respect for their sovereignty too. Nobody likes being in power struggles, especially with people they love. That's a great way to get folks digging in their heels. But with respect and love and kindness and your own self-authorship, you might just find that doors open and miracles happen. Oh my goodness, we're almost ready to start the next episode. So we don't have time for any more questions now, but I'll be back after the next episode to share more with y'all. As always, as we go through episode 7, remember you can post and engage in the comment section, sharing your takeaways and your questions. We'll be on live afterwards to answer lots more. And you can also respond to other folks as we go along. All right, folks, it is now time for episode 7 in the Food Revolution Summit docuseries. Here we go.
The food revolution is ultra important.
The food revolution is an opportunity to change your life for the better.
What if food could be your medicine?
Learn how to eat to live a longer life.
If you want longevity, then focus on life-giving nutrition.
The food revolution is happiness.
The food revolution is vital for human health and the planet.
What if food could change everything?
What if food could reduce your risk of cancer?
What if your food choices could shape the future?
Now is the time for change.
Say yes to the change you want to see.
Now is the time to take charge of your life.
Let's do this.
Let's do this.
It's time for a food revolution.
The food revolution starts now.
The food revolution starts now.
The food revolution starts now, baby.
We have today a sea of often overwhelming and frequently contradictory information competing for our attention. And the noise is only getting louder now that corporate and political agendas are using AI and bots to co-opt algorithms and dominate news feeds. There's an old saying that a person with one watch knows what time it is. A person with two watches is never quite sure. It seems like every day another so-called expert is telling you everything you thought you knew about nutrition was wrong. And most of them are selling something too, by the way.
But there's a beacon of truth amidst the chaos. Science, rooted in genuine curiosity and at its best, unclouded by bias, science can reveal what our bodies really need and what they really don't.
A lot of education comes from influencers, people who are swayed by industry. They're getting paid special interests, right? Like the meat and dairy industry, it's like they have billions of dollars to advertise, and plants don't. So what we can rely on is evidence-based physicians to actually present the science to people, the lay people who are not in the medical industry, to our wonderful dietitians who are making a huge difference in this world, to our nurses, PAs, and of course, doctors, and just keep educating. And I think it isn't easy, of course, because you're getting false advertisements and the push with a lot of dollars coming from the meat and dairy industry, but you just have to keep presenting the science.
Some people say that to unlock our best health, we should eat more like our ancestors. Did we evolve to eat in a certain way? And if so, what did our ancestors eat anyways?
We will look back at the history and we know that for most of human history, people ate plants. Hunter-gatherers were really gatherers that were occasional hunters. Less than 20% of the time they were actually successful in hunting. Most of the time they're out gathering. And we know that because when they look at fecal samples, poop from Paleolithic people, they were eating 70 to 100 grams of fiber a day. That's not what you find in a carnivore diet.
Right.
So they were eating lots of plants. And then we look at, what's happened in our population as we've moved into this processed diet and heavy meat diet. We've seen a massive spike of chronic disease. 131 million Americans take prescription drugs every day. 2.5 billion people in the world are overweight or obese. I mean, we're doing something wrong. What we're eating is not helpful.
Some people think about ancestral eating and eating the way that our bodies were designed to eat. Mm-hmm. And the whole paleo movement is based on this philosophy that we should eat foods the way that nature intended and the way that our ancestors traditionally did. What are your thoughts on ancestral eating, and what is the sort of modern approach to the paleo concept getting wrong?
Well, the paleo idea was that we should eat the way people ate before modern agriculture. Don't plant stuff, don't milk a cow. To their credits, they're kind of anti-dairy. Mm-hmm. But they got the idea that this means meat. Well, I don't know about them, but my ancestors, I'm talking about going way back, are great apes. We're not cats and dogs. We're not natural meat eaters. The great apes are humans, chimpanzees, orangutans, gorillas, bonobos. That's it. If you look at their diets, number one, dairy is not part of it. Number two, they're not eating a steak. They are either almost entirely or entirely plant-based. And meat eating was not a thing at all, really, until the Stone Age, when people figured out how to make arrowheads and knives and spears. I mean, imagine with just your hands, capture a bull and eat him. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen. But the Stone Age changed everything. It made it possible to kill animals. When we got fire, I mean, now you're onto something, you can cook. And then comparatively recently, people figured out how to make cows stand still, and they brought dairy into it. But the idea that the paleo thing is frankly something for insecure men who like to picture themselves in a loincloth with a spear, living at this one particular isolated moment in history when people had acquired the technology for killing and dismembering animals, but had not yet figured out how to plant anything. And so that's this world they're living in. And to take their advice is like taking dietary advice from your drunk Uncle Ernie. These people have some kind of big thing that they think means something to them, but scientifically there's nothing whatsoever to it. And when people eat that way, what are you doing? You're eating a big load of cholesterol and a big load of saturated fat, and you're not getting the fiber that you need, and you're just asking for trouble.
The paleo diet has gained popularity in part because it cuts out a lot of problematic foods like dairy, processed junk, artificial additives, and added sugars. For many people, this is a big step in the right direction. But it also tends to eliminate grains and legumes, which are some of the most consistently health-promoting foods we know of. And it often emphasizes heavy meat consumption, which, as we've seen, can come with significant health risks.
At the same time, another dietary trend has taken the world by storm, the ketogenic diet. Originally developed as a medical intervention for epilepsy, keto focuses on slashing carbohydrates and increasing fat intake to push the body into a state of ketosis, where it burns fat for fuel instead of carbohydrate. Many people turn to keto for weight loss, blood sugar control, or cognitive benefits. But the mainstream keto approach often leans heavily on animal products like butter, bacon, and cheese, which can raise concerns about long-term health impacts, especially heart health.
For a meta-analysis published in Frontiers in Nutrition, a group of scientists, researchers, and registered dietitians analyzed more than 100 peer-reviewed studies on keto diets to identify long-term effects. They found that people who follow ketogenic diets long-term have a significantly increased risk of developing heart disease, LDL cholesterol buildup, kidney failure, Alzheimer's disease, type 2 diabetes, and cancer.
Some people have explored a plant-based version of keto, though it's very restrictive and typically focuses on non-starchy vegetables, nuts, seeds, avocados, olives, and bottled oils. Some people have found benefit from this dietary pattern, at least in the short term. But over time, it tends to be too restrictive, and it's really hard to get all the nutrients you need on an exclusively plant-based ketogenic diet.
One thing that is intriguing, however, is research showing that ketones themselves may offer some real benefits. So let's take a look at what we know about ketones and how they might impact our health.
Now, a lot of people think ketones and keto and all of that type of thing, similar mechanism in that we're trying to produce ketones in the body, but ketones are somewhat helpful. In fact, even when you drink coffee, ketones are produced. It's all about how you get those ketones though, right? So if you're eating bacon-wrapped scallops and you're getting a keto diet and ketones that way, that's not what I would recommend. But ketones seem to be somewhat helpful, actually, and it may be an interesting way that that's generating better health outcomes. But I think in general, it's really cutting out the calories, preventing the sugar spikes. So if you're at a workplace, and healthcare is notorious for this, you walk by the doctor's lounge, the nurse's station, wherever, there's donuts and cookies and juice and, things you just want to skip. And what we do is we kind of just graze throughout the day, eating all kinds of calories you probably don't need. And figuring out how to let go of that is really powerful, and that's where intermittent fasting comes in. So I think the jury is still not fully, deliberated on this, but I think it's worth looking into, and for many people, it's quite helpful to lose additional weight.
Some popular dietary patterns have scientific backing, while others are still up for debate or may even be harmful. They might sound compelling at first glance, but fall apart when you look at the actual research. One of those is the so-called blood type diet. The idea that what we should eat depends on our blood type has been floating around for years, but does it actually hold up to scrutiny?
It really all started with a book with someone who had these theories that if you were blood type O, you needed to eat meat. And if you were blood type A, you had to eat less of meat. And so, but really when we look at the hard evidence, when we're looking at those research studies that he quoted in the book, none of them are actually true. There's no validity to any of that quote, those theories, that science. So it just keeps coming back up. I'm not quite sure why, because every time it does, there's just no research behind it. And, you know, there is someone who said, you know, one of the doctors said that, oh, we're pending research coming out, but the research just has never been there. Mm-hmm. So until I see something published, the blood type diet is, you know, everyone should eat more fruits and vegetables, I think, for all blood types.
So when it comes to the blood type diet, the verdict is pretty clear. Decades after the book started selling millions of copies, there's still simply no scientific evidence to back it up. No credible studies show that people fare better or worse with different dietary patterns based on their blood type. What we do know from mountains of research is that some foods promote health across the board, like vegetables, legumes, whole grains, nuts and seeds, while others, like processed junk, added sugar, and excessive animal products, are linked to higher risks of chronic disease.
But even within the world of science-backed nutrition, there are a lot of different dietary patterns that people follow. And that brings us to a big question. What makes a diet truly healthy? Is it just about the ingredients on the plate, or is there something more to it? To explore this, let's dive into what the latest research tells us about the best dietary pattern for human health.
I would love to talk about dietary patterns because I've recently served as the chair of the American Heart Association, and one of our main functions is to write scientific statements about confusing issues. And one of them that just came out was popular diet patterns. It just came out last year. And let me tell you a challenge of actually addressing that issue. And one is how those diet patterns are intended versus how they're consumed. So let me just start with that for a minute. So imagine somebody tells you they're Mediterranean. You say, great, I've heard that's a very popular diet. It seems like you had an Egg McMuffin for breakfast and a Big Mac for lunch and a Whopper for dinner. How is it that you're Mediterranean? I say, well, I have a little jigger of olive oil next to my nightstand, and before I go to bed, I chug that olive oil, so I'm a Mediterranean, right? No. There's way more to the Mediterranean diet than olive oil. And in fact, there's almost more to the Mediterranean diet than food. I remember the Center for Science and Public Interest did a really nice write-up of this years back saying it's not just the food, it's the afternoon siesta. It's walking around with a flock of sheep for hours and hours each day. It's social connectivity. So the Mediterranean diet as intended is probably different than some people are practicing it.
So a plant-based diet can take a variety of forms. One of the most kind of easy ones to associate it with is the Mediterranean-style dietary pattern. Again, really rich in fresh fruits and vegetables, generally low in animal products, and focuses on those whole foods rather than those more processed and refined foods.
But we've seen these humble foods that everybody knows they should be eating, but people by and large kind of neglect them. The people who eat the most vegetables and fruits, you'll see if you just track their cognitive function. For people, let's say that the highest maybe quartile of vegetable consumption in the U.S., their cognitive decline is slowed compared to other people, and their cognitive age is about 11 years less than other people. And, Ocean, I got to tell you, to get into the top quartile, I'm talking about the top category of vegetables and fruits in the U.S., you don't have to eat very much. You know, if people eat 2, 3, 4 servings of vegetables and fruits a day, they are way ahead of their friends and workmates. That said, don't stop there. I think that we should include as much vegetables and fruits and obviously plant-based foods overall as we can.
At this point, it's pretty clear that eating more whole plant-based foods, especially fruits and vegetables, can do good things for our long-term health. But one plant food in particular needs a deeper conversation. It's a cornerstone of many plant-based diets and the top source of protein for millions of people. Yet in spite of this, or maybe because of it, soy is often vilified.
Some people say that soy is a superfood packed with protein, isoflavones, and other beneficial nutrients. Others claim it promotes cancer, causes early puberty in children, and leads to hormone disruption. So what's the truth?
So another area in this whole plant-based world that's been very confusing, and still is very confusing for a lot of people today, is soy. Because they discovered that soy products contain a phytochemical called phytoestrogens, there was the concern that by eating too much soy, we would be getting too much estrogen. And with the understanding that, when there's an increased amount of estrogen, it increases the risk of estrogen-sensitive cancers like ovarian cancer and breast cancer, prostate cancer. So the research world took that kind of early research, not conclusive, not randomized controlled trials, but this was early research based on assumptions, and demonized soy. Soy, feminizes men. Soy gives men man boobs, right? Soy increases the risk of cancer. And so many people, for those reasons, were afraid of consuming soy products, not thinking to look at the research that even just came out of Japan historically that consumes a lot of soy. They had low rates of breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and samurai warriors and strong men that were not feminized by eating soy products. That, again, got spread publicly and through gyms and bro science and lots of places where people began to be fearful of consuming soy. The good news is research continues, and they've identified that there are actually 2 receptors in our body for estrogen, E1 and E2. And they discovered that the phytoestrogens actually bind to the E2 receptor. And when it binds the E2, it turns off the E1, so it actually reduces the effect of estrogen in the body. Because it reduces the estrogen effect, it actually is protective against breast cancer, ovarian cancer, prostate cancer, and protects testosterone in men. A cup of edamame is almost 20 grams of protein, lots of phytoestrogens, and a perfect opportunity for people to get, a great protein source with fiber and phytoestrogens that are protective in every way. You get the whole food, and then you get the entire effect of the soy with the fiber compared to a piece of meat. 20 grams of protein, steak versus soy, is a vast difference. The 20 grams of protein in the steak come packaged with inflammatory molecules, Nu-5GC, heme iron, endotoxin, saturated fat, acrylamides when you grill it, and has this damaging effect on the entire body, causing inflammation, disrupting the microbiome, creating TMAO, this whole downstream effect. But you eat your 20 grams of protein from your soy, and it affects every system in your body positively in 4 hours. And you got all your protein that you needed. So there's nothing better than soy products and plants to meet that protein need.
In 2020, Dr. Messina published a really great meta-analysis that looked at 417 human studies because soy could potentially be what we call an endocrine disruptor. It behaves like estrogen in some places and not in others, and maybe this is going to have deleterious effects. And their conclusion was, in point of fact, soy is not an endocrine disruptor in any way, with thyroid, with cancers, with semen levels in men, fertility and ovulation in women, and even no negative effects in children.
We've just heard how the myths about soy being harmful have been pretty thoroughly debunked by research. In reality, soy is a nutritional powerhouse. It's rich in high-quality protein, fiber, and heart-healthy fats, and it even contains compounds that can help protect against certain types of cancer. Studies show that soy consumption is linked to lower rates of breast and prostate cancer, better bone health, and improved cardiovascular function. And despite the fears about disrupting hormones, the truth is that soy's phytoestrogens may actually help to balance estrogen levels rather than disrupt them.
It's a great example of how misinformation can spread, leaving people unnecessarily fearful about a food that might actually help them thrive. And soy isn't alone. There's another plant food that has been the subject of a lot of controversy: gluten. In recent years, we've seen a huge wave of people cutting it out of their diets, believing it's a major cause of everything from weight gain to brain fog. Now, some people, up to 2% of the population, have celiac disease, and they should absolutely not eat gluten. But what about the other 98%?
There's been tremendous confusion about gluten, and I think probably about 10 years ago was kind of the height of the gluten frenzy. I can't remember, was it Wheat Belly, or there was a popular book that came out that, ascribed every ill to wheat and gluten, and it became way overstated. So gluten is not the mother of all evils. It's an important part of most people's diet. Wheat, barley, rye, more ancient wheats, farro, etc., have gluten. And so it's been a traditional part of the diet. Now, that being said, and if you remove it, you end up restricting your diet in really important big ways. If your diet becomes more restrictive, and if we're talking about restricting other things too, my concern is that it becomes really restrictive, maybe too much so. But there's a certain portion of the population that has celiac disease, and of course that's an autoimmune reaction to gluten. That's very serious and will cause major problems, anemia and osteoporosis and gut problems and skin problems and a variety of other things. And celiac disease is an autoimmune condition, also sometimes linked to other autoimmune conditions, more prevalent in other autoimmune diseases. And those folks who have that have to avoid every drop of gluten. And it's critical that they do so, and that actually treats the problem and eliminates the symptoms and problems and consequences. There's another category of people called non-celiac gluten sensitivity. There's some uncertainty about this kind of designation, though, because there are individuals who feel like they are sensitive to gluten and they notice a reaction to gluten when they consume it.
They also can get joint pain, similar symptoms, brain fog, memory issues, even if they don't have celiac disease. And for those patients, it would be a good idea to avoid gluten as well.
But interestingly, there have been studies now where they take a group of people who feel like they're gluten sensitive. They don't have celiac. They've been tested for celiac. They don't have celiac, but they still feel like they're gluten sensitive. And it turns out that a fair number of people, when challenged, so they can, for example, you can give people muffins that some of them secretly have gluten, some of them don't. And you can't tell, you don't know. When they're challenged with kind of rigorous exposure studies, it turns out that some folks who thought they were sensitive are not. Now, that being said, some of them who thought that they were sensitive are sensitive. So it's not a made up problem. There are people who are sensitive to gluten in a variety of different ways, and it does cause them problems. It can be a little hard with food sensitivities to really untangle exactly what you're sensitive to, and I think sometimes the research suggests that it's not gluten so much. So big picture, the vast majority of people don't need to worry about gluten. It's not a problem. It's an important part of the diet and in many foods, and in many foods that we consume and can consume.
So to sum it up, gluten is a protein, and wheat, barley, and rye and whole grains are healthy for most people. If you have celiac disease, you should never eat it. And for a small but real group of people, non-celiac gluten sensitivity can cause issues like digestive discomfort, joint pain, or brain fog. But research suggests that many people who think they're sensitive to gluten may actually be reacting to something else, perhaps ultra-processed foods, or even, honestly, the placebo effect, which is very powerful, by the way.
It really is. So if you're having symptoms like headaches or digestive discomfort or brain fog, which could be associated with gluten sensitivity, and if you haven't tested positive for celiac disease, how can you know if gluten's actually a problem? Well, a good first step is to focus on eating a whole foods, plant-based diet without ultra-processed foods for a few weeks and see how you feel. If you're still having symptoms, you might try eliminating gluten for a month and seeing if that helps. If you feel better at that point, you can experiment further, perhaps avoiding it for longer or reintroducing small amounts of organic sprouted whole grains like barley or wheat to see how your body responds. The goal is to listen to your body and find what works best for you.
Now, there's another category of so-called harmful compounds that have gotten a bad reputation in recent years. They're called anti-nutrients. Anti-nutrients are plant compounds like oxalates and phytates, as well as lectins and goitrogens that can interfere with our body's ability to absorb certain essential nutrients. These substances can bind with vitamins and minerals and may be an issue for those prone to nutrient deficiencies. So naturally, there are a lot of questions about these anti-nutrients. Should you be concerned?
It's oftentimes a misconception when we think about anti-nutrients. It sounds a little scary even. Those would be things like oxalates, phytates, and lectins that we have in some of our foods. There are certainly some individuals that are a little bit more sensitive to something like oxalates that are in foods. You can think about some of our leafy greens. What those do is they enter our body and they bind to some of our other minerals. For the typical average person that's consuming a wide variety of different foods, I generally don't think about those anti-nutrients being negative overall in our diet. Sure, we're still going to have a decreased absorption of some of our micronutrients, things like calcium or iron, but we have other aspects of the foods that we're consuming that really still help the absorption of that. So whenever we're consuming a variety of a diet, then it really shouldn't be a concern unless we're eating heaps and heaps of only certain select foods.
The term anti-nutrients can be misleading. While these compounds can interfere with nutrient absorption or digestion in isolation, they're found in some of the healthiest foods on the planet. Foods like beans, lentils, spinach, kale, nuts, seeds, and whole grains are high in lectins, oxalates, or phytates. Cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and Brussels sprouts contain goitrogens. Yet thousands of studies consistently link these foods with incredible health benefits, from reduced risk of heart disease, cancer, and diabetes to better weight management and longer lifespans.
So how can something labeled as an anti-nutrient also be beneficial?
It's because the nutrient absorption effect of these compounds is only part of the picture. For example, lectins in beans and lentils slow carbohydrate absorption, helping to regulate blood sugar and improve weight control. Phytates, once labeled as mineral blockers, actually have powerful antioxidant properties and may reduce the risk of colon cancer. Oxalates, found in spinach and certain other greens, may raise concerns about kidney stones for some, but for most people, these greens are a terrific source of nutrients and health-promoting compounds. Whole plant foods are packed with nutrients, fiber, antioxidants, and bioactive compounds that far outweigh any potential downsides.
I understand there are also health benefits to these compounds, but if someone wants to optimize vitamin and mineral absorption, is there any way to reduce anti-nutrients to increase vitamin and mineral bioavailability?
Absolutely. Soaking and cooking beans and grains significantly reduce their phytate and lectin content, which is ideal since we typically consume them cooked anyway. While oxalates don't decrease a whole lot through cooking, opting for lower oxalate leafy greens like kale, turnip greens, collards, and mustard greens can help maximize nutrient absorption like calcium and iron. Additionally, sprouting and fermenting foods further enhance nutrient bioavailability.
What about goitrogens? Some people worry that cruciferous vegetables, which are high in goitrogens, might ultimately harm their thyroid health.
It's true that goitrogens can interfere with iodine uptake, but the amount in foods like kale or cauliflower is so small that you'd need to eat a massive quantity to see an effect. And cooking reduces goitrogens even further. Plus, these vegetables have profound health benefits. They're linked to lower risk of cancer, improved heart health, and even better brain function. So if you have a thyroid condition, then you may want to talk to your healthcare provider about whether or not it is safe for you to eat highly goitrogenic foods. But even then, the answer might actually be just to make sure you are consuming an appropriate amount of iodine.
Now, there is one case study in the medical literature of a woman who ate a case of bok choy per day. She wound up with some serious problems. So you can have too much of any one thing, even bok choy or flax seeds or water. But I think the real takeaway message here is to eat a variety of whole unprocessed plant foods. The health benefits are undeniable. Improved longevity, reduced inflammation, better heart health, stronger immunity, and lower risk of chronic diseases. Meanwhile, the real dietary culprits, sugar, processed foods, excessive animal products, and excessive sodium are far more likely to harm health.
Ocean just mentioned excessive sodium. Now, we all need some sodium, but most of us are getting way too much, and that has a significant impact on our risk of premature death from heart attack, stroke, and kidney disease. Where is all the sodium coming from?
Probably, I forget the exact number, but people get maybe about 80% or something of their sodium. It's a huge number, a huge percentage from restaurant food and prepared foods, foods that are prepared or packaged outside the house. And that, if you're eating that pretty much exclusively, you're getting a very high sodium intake. And that's what a lot of people do. They have, it's chips and then, the Chipotle and whatever. They're getting huge exposure to salt. And when they have that much salt, we know there are some people who are sensitive to salt and, associated with high blood pressure.
It's important for people to know that 75% of the sodium in our diet doesn't come from table salt that we use to cook with. It's coming from commercial food, whether it's packaged food or restaurant food. So if you want to cut back your sodium, cut back on the commercial food. It's not the table salt. And often what people will do is they'll cut back on the table salt, then they become iodine deficient, and then they'll take an iodine supplement, which can cause its own set of problems. So I focus, my emphasis is really on focusing on commercial foods in terms of minimizing sodium. Most of the sodium in our diet isn't coming from food we're making in our kitchen. It's coming from, it could be the jar of pasta sauce or the pre-made frozen burger or even bread. So anything commercial can be high in sodium. And a good rule of thumb is to look at the milligrams of sodium per serving and the calories per serving, and we want the sodium to be less than the calories per serving. And they sneak in sodium not just through salt, so it's not that they're overly salting the food, which they do too. It's all these additives like dough conditioners, stabilizers, texture modifiers. So a lot of these things don't even taste salty, but they have sodium in their chemistry. And that's why bread, even sourdough bread, which doesn't taste salty at all, is really high in sodium because of all these additives that are sneaking in.
We also know that there's some research between sodium intake and potassium intake and the balance of sodium and potassium. So oftentimes these very high processed diets are high in sodium but low in potassium. That has implications for blood vessel health and heart and high blood pressure, kidney health. Anybody with heart failure, these intakes of sodium can be highly detrimental. So, there's individuals who can have a high sodium intake for a long time and they seem to be fine. But there's a lot of people with these common problems, kidney health or, heart health, high blood pressure, where these high sodium intakes can be problematic.
So think of sodium and potassium as doing opposite things. Sodium leads to water retention, which increases our blood pressure. Potassium has the opposite effect. It helps decrease our blood pressure. So most people get too much sodium, 50% more, and most people are not getting sufficient potassium. And the reason they're not getting it is because where is potassium found? Fruits, vegetables, legumes, whole grains, and the average person isn't consuming nearly enough of those.
What about dairy? It's been marketed as nature's most perfect food, a rich source of protein and calcium and many other nutrients. Is all this true? Is drinking cow's milk important or beneficial for human health?
I'm not a big fan of dairy. If you think about food sensitivities and allergies, dairy is the most common food sensitivity of anything we encounter in the food world. There's more people with dairy sensitivities and intolerances than any other food. And the lactose, we know, for example, that large portions of the populations are lactose intolerant. There's also just the intuitive kind of, why are we as adults and humans, eating the milk, breast milk of an animal that's, for a baby cow. It just doesn't make sense. We know, for example, that cow's milk can increase IGF-1. It's insulin-like growth factor 1 in our bodies. Makes sense. Baby cows grow fast and quickly, and they use growth factors to do that. And so when we have cow's milk, we have more growth factor in our body too. Well, we know now that IGF-1 is a risk factor for a variety of common cancers. We also have some research that it's been associated with breast cancer risk. It's not conclusive, but there are some associations and risks out there. And there's been some association with autoimmune disease across a couple of different autoimmune diseases, so whether it's type 1 diabetes or multiple sclerosis. And there's been some, observational association, more dairy. There's also, why the heck are we even eating this stuff? People say for bone health, it's the calcium. And that's not even clear. There's some research showing that increased milk consumption is not actually even good for bones. It may actually be linked to worse outcomes.
Meta-analysis show that milk consumption does not appear to protect against hip fracture risks, despite what the dairy industry will tell you, but it is associated with premature death. Milk drinkers live shorter lives than non-milk drinkers, and we think it's a breakdown product of the milk sugar lactose called galactose, which is actually what's used in laboratory animal studies to mimic aging, to accelerate aging, but we can get it in a glass of milk. In my video on milk and bones, I discussed this set of studies, following 100,000 people for up to 2 decades, finding a 60% higher risk of hip fracture among women who drank a lot of milk. The researchers suggested it might be due to the galactose, which is a breakdown product of the milk sugar lactose, based on the fact that people with high levels in their blood, because they were born with an inability to detoxify the stuff, can end up with weakened bones. But that's not all galactose can do. Galactose is what scientists use to cause accelerated aging in lab animals, since it's so successful at mimicking aging by inducing degenerative changes in the brain, heart, lungs, liver, kidney, etc. Life-shortened animals showed neurodegeneration, mental retardation, and cognitive dysfunction, diminished immune responses, and a reduction of reproductive ability. And it doesn't take much, just the human equivalent of 1 to 2 glasses worth of milk a day. However, humans aren't rodents. For example, we've known for nearly a century that you can cause cataracts in rats by feeding them lots of lactose or galactose, but the epidemiological data is mixed as to whether dairy is doing the same in people. The Swedish studies didn't just look at bone, though, but milk and mortality. More milk was associated with more death. In women, 3 glasses of milk a day was associated with nearly twice the risk of dying prematurely.
Those findings are impressive. When a team of Harvard researchers learned of the Swedish study, they initiated a larger, more detailed investigation. They wanted to find out whether the initial results were just a fluke or a genuine breakthrough.
Following more than 200,000 men and women for up to 3 decades, they confirmed the bad news. Those who consume more dairy live significantly shorter lives. Every half serving more of regular milk a day was associated with 9% increased risk of dying from cardiovascular disease, 11% increased risk of dying from cancer, and 11% increased risk of dying from all causes put together.
So we've been told that milk is important to healthy lives and to strong bones, but it's actually associated with an increased risk of hip fractures, cardiovascular disease, and premature death.
That doesn't stop the dairy industry, however, from marketing very aggressively to our kids. In fact, in the U.S., milk is a non-negotiable part of both the national school lunch and breakfast programs. It's kind of astonishing that a food that many of us can hardly tolerate is so deeply woven into our children's daily meals.
We know that the USDA has a 2-pronged purpose. And part of it is to make sure that farmers have a market for their products, and dairy is one of the products. As far as whether or not it's actually necessary for children, let's start there. No. Short answer, no. There are many countries all around the world where drinking milk is not a part of the culture. It's just not done. And those cultures grow up just fine. Those children grow up just fine, strong bones, strong teeth, and they have robust lives. Now, for cultures and ethnicities, races that don't handle dairy products well, it is absolutely unkind and wrong on so many levels to encourage a child to drink or eat something that makes them sick. That's just wrong. The dairy industry actually has quite a bit to say about the school meals that our children receive. They are able to lobby the USDA and for till the cows come home to get more dairy, have it be front and center in the school meal program. Every school advertises big posters on the walls, ice cream, yogurt, milk products, got milk, where's your milk mustache? There's things like this. So I researched this a little bit about what the laws actually say around dairy in schools. So if you don't mind, I'll just read this part. There is a federal law that forbids schools participating in the National School Lunch Program from interfering with the sale or marketing of dairy milk at any time or place on school grounds or at school-sponsored events, which is basically a restriction of our right to free speech. Federal school meals programs like the National School Lunch Program require that dairy milk be offered at every meal, directing schools not to offer children water before milk in the lunch line. If that isn't just an outright clear example of the position that milk holds in our school lunch program, our school food programs, I don't know what is. And again, that it can so drastically impact a large section of the population negatively is pretty chilling, actually. The Dairy Council spends millions of dollars lobbying for milk to be placed prominently in schools and to be marketed to children. I just looked at the International Dairy Foods Association website. Starting in 2025 to 2026, they're going to do us the favor of making sure that milk products have no more than 2.5 teaspoons of sugar in each 8-ounce serving, meaning that we're not only allowing whole milk, I believe, is coming in, we're allowing added fat, and now we're going to have X amount of extra sugar in the milk products.
But what about calcium? Do we need dairy to get enough calcium and to have strong bones?
Overall, I want you to get your calcium from leafy greens, from your kales and your arugulas and your spinach and your Swiss chard and your bok choy. And you'll probably get more than enough. And do your weight-bearing exercise. There's no way around it that that's necessary. As much as hopping up and down 5 minutes a week in a recent athlete study showed it improved bone health.
So we've seen that bovine dairy isn't the super healthy food that it's been made out to be. But that doesn't mean we should ignore our calcium needs, especially for those at higher risk of osteoporosis, like postmenopausal women.
That's right, Ocean. As we discussed in episode 1, while a whole foods plant-based diet can provide plenty of calcium through foods like tofu, leafy greens, almonds, and even fortified plant-based milks, some people, particularly postmenopausal vegan women, may need a little extra support. Research suggests that unless we're sure we're getting at least 1,200 milligrams of calcium per day, it may be wise to take a small supplement, even as little as 150 milligrams of calcium twice a day, along with a bit of vitamin D and vitamin K2. These nutrients work together to enhance calcium absorption and ensure it reaches our bones rather than accumulating in our arteries. Prioritizing a food-first approach remains key, as whole foods naturally provide a range of nutrients essential for bone health and overall wellness. That said, in some cases, a small supplement can help complement a well-rounded diet.
And of course, strong bones aren't just about calcium. Weight-bearing exercise like walking, hiking, or strength training sends signals to your body to keep bones strong and dense. It's one of the most effective ways to prevent osteoporosis and fractures as we age.
So while we don't need dairy to build strong bones, we do need a combination of smart nutrition, movement, and for some people, targeted supplementation.
There's a fascinating debate brewing about fish consumption. Some studies suggest that people who include fish in their diets not only live longer, but also enjoy fewer chronic diseases. For example, the ongoing Adventist Health Study has so far found that vegetarians outlive omnivores, vegans outlive vegetarians, and pescatarians, people who avoid all animal products except fish, seem to have the longest life expectancy of all. They beat the vegans by just a smidge. Plus, a 2019 journal review revealed that children of mothers who ate seafood weekly scored significantly higher in verbal IQ and overall academics.
That really makes you wonder what's driving these benefits. Is it the long-chain omega-3 fatty acids like EPA and DHA that are in turn boosting brain and cardiovascular health? Or are fish eaters simply cutting down on red meat and processed foods? Perhaps they lead generally healthier lifestyles, exercising more and smoking less. Or do fish eaters tend to be more affluent and perhaps their improved longevity is tied to that in some way?
There's a lot more for us to learn. It's clear that fish consumption is linked to positive outcomes when compared to the modern industrialized diet. What about if we compare it to a whole food plant-based dietary pattern?
Fish intake compared to Oreo intake or Spam intake, fish is probably pretty good. And it has some benefits. If you compare fish with broccoli intake, fish is not so good. So you get these studies that are confusing. In some studies, people who have fish are healthier, but they're also probably eating better overall. It's not like you're planning dinner and you're choosing either fish or broccoli. Most people are choosing fish or some other meat, right? So they have less red meat and they're eating more fish, they're healthier. Is that because of the fish? Is it because they're having more fruits and vegetables? It's really hard to untangle. But I think of it as all relative. There's some problems in terms of its heavy metal consumption, mercury consumption, and so forth that are problematic. Its lack of fiber and so forth. Fish consumption is, I think, unnecessary. Let's say I would establish and say that's seems pretty certain that we certainly don't need to have fish in our diet.
Many health influencers are pointing to the omega-3 fatty acids in fish, particularly DHA and EPA, as playing a crucial role in reducing risk of cardiovascular disease and dementia. This has spawned a huge business. The global fish oil market is now worth more than $13 billion per year. Is that a good thing?
The omega-3 story is an interesting journey. So many years ago, this was the start of the fish oil recommendation. There was a study that came out called the DART-1 trial. And they had been studying some indigenous people, the Eskimos up north, and in a small sample found that, the people that were eating fish had lower heart disease rates. So they published this very small trial, got picked up by the media, like it often does, and broadcast to the world. Eating fish reduces cardiovascular disease. Everybody bought in, eating more fish. Supplement manufacturers grabbed a hold of it, started producing fish oil and advocating for fish oil to reduce cardiovascular disease. At the same time, the researchers began to ask themselves, is this actually correct, knowing the limitations of their first study? So they produced the second trial called the DART-2 trial. And they did a much larger, more robust trial, better methods. And at the conclusion of that trial, they found that fish oil has no benefit in reducing cardiovascular disease.
Interesting.
But by then, the horses were out. The population had believed that fish oil actually would reduce cardiovascular disease. And the second trial got no publicity. So from that time forward, there's been this ongoing belief that we can take fish oil and reduce our risk of cardiovascular disease. They're not thinking about the root cause, which is unhealthy diet with animal products and processed food, stress, inactivity, and poor sleep. The lifestyle. Everybody thinks taking a supplement fixes it. The other part of this then that became another advocation for fish oil was they began to see that people had high inflammatory levels because of the unhealthy lifestyle. To fix it, they recommended fish oil. And so when they look at the balance of inflammatory fatty acids, omega-6s, to anti-inflammatory omega-3s, they found the average American was somewhere between 20 to 40 of the unhealthy to 1 of the omega-3s. And so science tried to fix it by saying, let's add more fish oil to try and overcome this part of it. So you're taking some fish oil to try and beat this. But what didn't they do? They didn't ask, well, where are all these omega-6s coming from? Which comes from animal fat, vegetable oils, and processed food. And so rather than addressing the root cause, which is reducing animal products and oils, they tried to bump it up by taking fish oils. One of the problems with fish oils is that sometimes they're rancid as a supplement. Another problem is that they contain a lot of heavy metals and toxins today because we polluted our oceans.
It turns out that you can go to the most remote oceans on the planet and they're loaded with PCBs, dioxins, heavy metals, organophosphates, microplastics, nuclear fallout, things you would never want to consume in large quantities. And it turns out that over-the-counter fish oil is actually largely contaminated with heavy metals from the fish themselves, along with many other things. And it's not recommended actually by any of the professional society guidelines.
And the last thing, which is extremely important, it's not sustainable. We are overfishing our oceans. We're depleting fisheries faster than we can imagine. And so trying to fix this inflammatory problem, trying to prevent cardiovascular disease by depleting one of the most important resources on Earth by taking a pill when it's really changing your plate is insanity.
What about algae-based forms of EPA, DHA, and the other long-chain omega-3 fatty acids? Do they have benefit, particularly for people who don't eat fish?
People who don't consume, fish or, seafood tend to be lower. They have lower levels of omega-3 fatty acids. However, DHA and EPA are derived from algae. That's the source. And the story is, I think, some engineers who were creating a model of human beings going to Mars when they were brainstorming to come up with highlighting the important food factors that human beings can't live without, omega-3 fatty acids was one of them. And they did some research and they found out that it actually is derived from algae. So thank goodness for technology, we can actually extract DHA and EPA from algae, and it is available for people who don't want to consume fish or who are on a plant-based diet and they don't want to, get it from fish directly. And I think it's better because you kind of bypass all of the other toxins that might be available in fish as well. So yes, algae-based omega-3 fatty acids is a great replacement, and it's essentially the same as fish oil for people who don't consume fish.
So if somebody did want to add some additional EPA for their brain, it would just come from algae, which is the original source of the fish oil in the beginning. The fish are eating algae, accumulating that in their tissues, and that's where the fish oil has its omega-3. So we just go back to the original source. It's always back to the beginning, right?
Back to the source.
It's always back to the source.
Yeah.
That's right.
Studies have found that up to a third of the fish oil and algal oil-based omega-3 supplements are rancid. So if you're going to take an algae-derived supplement, and there's some good reason to do so, you want to make sure it's fresh. Some tips for avoiding rancidity are: look at expiration dates to make sure they're as far away as possible. Only buy from stores that keep them in a fridge. Buy on auto ship direct from the manufacturer. Go for unflavored varieties and don't consume any that taste or smell off. And once it gets home, aim to consume it within a few months and to keep it as much as possible in the fridge.
Let's not overlook the remarkable benefits of omega-3 rich plant foods too. These include flaxseed meal, walnuts, chia seeds, and hemp seeds, all of which are loaded with the short-chain omega-3 fatty acid, ALA. In fact, US guidelines recommend that women aim for 1.1 grams of ALA daily, and men aim for 1.6 grams of ALA daily.
Exactly. Even though only a small portion of ALA converts into DHA and EPA, its role is indispensable. And these nutrient-dense foods all deliver way more than just the ALA. They also bring along a bounty of protein and vitamins and minerals and fiber, and in the case of flax, also lignans and phytoestrogens, which makes them wonderful additions to your diet.
Okay, now let's talk about the number one question that any plant-based eater is going to face. Where do you get your protein?
Yep, we hear that one a lot. Now, we've already discussed this a bit in episodes 1 and 6, but it's important, so let's take a deeper dive.
We do know that on a plant-based diet, you can still get adequate protein. As Americans in general, we're consuming too much protein to begin with, and we actually don't need quite as much as that we're having in our supply. And it doesn't need to be in all of our granola bars, our cereals, this, that, packed in. But we actually can get them from very whole food, natural sources. Things like we mentioned, beans are a great source of protein. We even get protein from plant-based vegetables. Things like broccoli can actually have protein in them. Other really high, great sources of protein could be our tofu, tempeh. Those are great sources that can be combined in a variety of different ways in a variety of different dishes to really make a complete and total meal. We've also had a lot of misconceptions that some of our plant-based foods don't contain all the essential amino acids that we need for our bodies. That's been debunked. All of our plant proteins and plant-based sources of protein have all the essential amino acids that we need. They have them in different amounts, but when we're consuming a wide variety of different foods, then that really shouldn't be a concern for us.
It's a misconception that plant foods are lacking in essential amino acids. So if you look at the rationale for that, if someone were to eat only corn and nothing but corn, some of their essential amino acids would be too low. Okay, the essential amino acid is the amino acid you have to consume in food because your body can't make it. But corn has all the essential amino acids, it's just that the balance, there's one or two that might be a little bit low. But if you're eating a varied diet, the amino acids more than balance out.
Only 4% of any age group today is meeting the basic recommendation of fiber. Everybody wants to talk about protein, but we do not have a protein deficiency in the world today. You won't go to the hospital and find a protein deficiency unit. I've never seen that. Fiber deficiency, all day long. And the requirements are like 25 to 35 grams, which are very low compared to the studies that show that we really get maximal protection at 70 grams of fiber every day, just a plant-based diet. So we begin to look at what makes the body healthy, what optimizes the systems of the body. It's plants. It's fiber, it's phytochemicals, it's polyphenols. And when we eat plants, we get more than enough protein. The research shows 70% more protein than we actually need in a plant-based diet. We get all the amino acids that we need.
On average, most people need about 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. But requirements vary. As we age, particularly after the age of 65, our bodies may benefit from up to 1.2 grams per kilogram per day to help preserve lean body mass. And active people, especially endurance and strength training athletes, might need between 1.2 and 2 grams of protein per kilogram per day for peak recovery and performance. But if you exercise a lot, then you're already getting plenty of calories, which will help you meet your protein needs.
Now, let me shed a little more light on this at the risk of being geeky for Americans who are not used to thinking in the metric system. I want to lead you in a quick math calculation. So in general, protein requirements are tied to healthy body weight. This means that if you're obese, you may not need to base your requirements on your current weight, but rather on what you would weigh if you were not obese. If your healthy weight is 150 pounds, then that's going to be 68 kilograms. If it's 120 pounds, that's going to be 54 kilograms. If you're over the age of 65 and your goal is 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, then if you weigh 120 pounds, you're going for 65 grams a day. If you weigh 150 pounds, you're going for 82 grams a day. Now, if you eat 2,000 calories per day, which by the way is quite a bit less than most Americans are consuming, and if you're getting 15% of your calories from protein, which is pretty typical overall across the plant kingdom, then that means you'll be getting 300 calories from protein in a day. Now, there are 4 calories in a gram of protein. So 1/4 of 300 is 75. This means that if you're eating 2,000 calories in a day, which by the way is quite a bit less than the average American consumes, and if 15% of your calories are coming from protein, which again is a pretty typical ratio in the plant kingdom, then you'll be getting 75 grams of protein per day. And again, if you weigh 120 pounds and you're over age 65, you might need 65. And if you eat as many calories as the average American does, which is 3,600 in a day, then you might be getting 135 grams of protein per day.
Now that's all based on getting 15% of your calories from protein, which is very doable on a plant-based diet. But the key thing to remember is that there are a lot of calories, but there's no protein in bottled oils and in added sugars. There's very little protein in white flour. So if you are a vegan consuming a lot of ultra-processed packaged vegan food, or if you aren't consuming enough total calories, then protein could start to be a concern. That's another reason to base your diet around whole plant-based foods.
Yeah, it is, Nicole. But still, a lot of people think that animal protein sources are superior. Are they?
Is the type of protein you choose is important. So think about it. For example, when you eat protein, it's not just protein. If it's a whole food, like for example, if you're eating a protein powder, yes, it's just concentrated protein. But when you're eating food, if you're eating a steak, that has protein, but it has a different effect on your metabolism and gut health than if you're eating, for example, hemp seeds or tofu, right? So one must decide, okay, do I want to choose the steak or the tofu? And here's the main difference. If you're choosing steak, which has protein, there's also something else called saturated fat that comes with that steak. Saturated fat has been linked to production of a lot of bile acids, which in your gut get through an enzymatic reaction, get converted to secondary bile acids and can be damaging to the gut. Furthermore, the gut cells are connected by these proteins called the tight junctions. The tight junctions get severed with a high saturated fat diet. Whereas if you're choosing tofu for your nutrition needs and protein, you're basically getting wholesome food with a lot of protein and not the same effects as steak because there's very little, if any, saturated fat in tofu.
Edamame is another great source of protein. I put that on a salad. I mean, when I have a salad, it's not, you think it's not just lettuce and tomato and some vinaigrette. I mean, it's edamame and chickpeas and hemp seeds and blueberries and walnuts and, kale and arugula and, on and on and on. It really is a symphony of nutrients, if you will.
In our first episode, I shared how my breakfast smoothie alone delivers 42 grams of protein, thanks to a blend of unsweetened soy milk, peanut butter, hemp seeds, and a bit of fruit. It's not only delicious, but also gets my day off to a filling start.
I love that, Ocean. I always encourage incorporating protein-rich plant-based foods into every meal, like hearty beans, lentils, or tofu. And tempeh is a favorite of mine. It's bursting with protein, fiber, iron, and calcium.
And don't overlook whole grains, like buckwheat, quinoa, and amaranth. They're surprising protein powerhouses too. What's also wonderful is that these foods come loaded with essential minerals like calcium, iron, zinc, and magnesium that work together to support overall health.
Let's look at some of these essential minerals. We already talked about calcium. What about zinc?
Zinc is a mineral, but we don't really need too much of it. We can find it in a variety of different foods that are plant-based. You can find them in beans, soybeans. You can find them in whole grains, in different nuts, pine nuts, also different seeds, hemp seeds. So you really just need a little bit. So again, if you're eating that wide variety of food, I don't think you need to supplement with them.
What about selenium?
Selenium, another mineral that we don't need much of. And if you are being specific, we can have one Brazil nut gives you almost twice the amount you need in a day, or the average American needs. One bowl of pasta actually will get you about almost to how much you need in a day. So you can get them from baked beans and different types of grains. So again, selenium is one of those, if you're eating a wide variety of food, you shouldn't have to worry about.
What's your take on iodine?
Iodine is a mineral and we need it. And the reason we need it is our thyroid gland uses iodine to produce thyroid hormone. Now, we need a little bit of iodine, but not too much. And the reason I say that is if we get too much iodine, it shuts down our thyroid gland. If we get too little, that shuts down our thyroid gland.
Kind of a Goldilocks principle.
Yes. So just the right amount. It's important for people to know iodine is found in a wide variety of foods. But the World Health Organization has found that one of the best ways to ensure that people get sufficient iodine is through iodized salt. And the reason that's important is when we consume just plain old iodized table salt and we use it in our cooking, we're getting just a little bit of iodine, just the right amount. I generally do not recommend iodine supplements for the reason that I said it shuts down the thyroid gland. Mm-hmm. So it's better to just get it naturally through our food, and iodized table salt is a good way to do that.
Let's talk about iron. Nicole, can you tell us about the difference between heme and non-heme iron, and how do we know if we're getting too much or too little?
Great question, Ocean. Heme iron, which is abundant in animal products, is absorbed much more efficiently than non-heme iron, which is primarily found in plants and in smaller quantities in animals. However, too much iron absorption isn't always beneficial. Excess heme iron has been linked to higher risk of heart disease, neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, liver damage, and certain types of cancer. And over-relying on iron supplements can trigger oxidative stress, gastrointestinal distress, and potential organ damage.
So excessive iron can be a major problem. It's linked to increased risk of diseases that kill millions of people. And you're far more likely to have excessive iron if you're getting heme iron from animal products, because heme iron more or less forces its way into your bloodstream, whereas your body tends to titrate its absorption of non-heme iron up or down, depending on how much your body actually needs. So getting iron from plant foods may be optimal. But Nicole, are there some people who need to pay attention in order to be sure they're getting enough?
Yeah, so certain groups of people like menstruating women, vegetarians, and athletes may need extra iron. If your blood tests indicate that your iron levels are low, your healthcare provider may encourage you to take a supplement or to eat meat as a source of heme iron. But in reality, there are wonderful ways to get your iron needs met from the plant kingdom. Nature offers robust plant sources rich in iron like legumes, whole grains, dark leafy greens, and dried fruit. Pairing these with vitamin C and carotene-rich foods dramatically boost iron absorption. Even allium vegetables like garlic, onions, and shallots help with iron absorption. What's wonderful is that foods that naturally pair well together end up being an iron powerhouse meal. For example, bean tacos are high in iron. Then they're topped with vitamin C and carotene-rich tomato-based salsa. Then if you top your tacos with chopped onion, you add even more iron-enhancing properties.
Fascinating and delicious too, I might add. So an iron supplement's probably only helpful if your blood tests show you're low in iron, and if eating iron and vitamin C-rich foods isn't getting you where you need to be, or it's not helping you fast enough. Now, speaking of supplements, what other ones should we be considering for optimal health, and why?
The one that I kind of always go back to is B12, as even if you're vegetarian or if you're over the age of 50, I recommend everyone take a B12 supplement. As we age, we stop producing as much hydrochloride in our stomach, and so and that's what we need to digest B12. So even if you're an omnivore and you're eating enough B12 in your diet, sometimes you just can't even absorb it. So I do recommend a B12 supplement for everyone over the age of 50.
The big three would be a B12 for stroke risk, vitamin D for stroke risk, and omega-3, which can be done through food, but there's some very convenient and inexpensive ways to do them as a supplement.
With aging, it's important, again, make sure your vitamin B12 is sufficient. There may be some benefit, obviously, with omega-3 fatty acids. from food first, and then if it's a little low, perhaps an algae supplement, and then a little bit of iodine. And that can come from either seaweed or an iodine supplement just to support the thyroid. But in those ways, by ensuring a healthy whole food plant-based diet from a variety of plants with lots of greens and chia seeds and flax seeds and healthy sources, and of course lentils and beans. You have to eat lentils and beans, they're good for everything. I really believe that's enough to be sufficient and to have a healthy, vibrant body well into your 90s and even 100.
At a biological level, you are the only you on this planet. Your genes, metabolism, age, activity level, health history, even your gut microbiome, all influence how you process food and how you respond to food. No two people digest, absorb, or use nutrients in exactly the same way.
And yet, for all our differences, we still have fundamental things in common. We all need essential vitamins, minerals, proteins, and healthy fats to thrive. So are there universal principles that do apply for just about all of us?
Most of the kind of personalized nutrition is scammy nonsense. I mean, there are differences between people. Some people are lactose intolerant, some not. Some metabolize caffeine faster than others. Some people are gluten intolerant. Some people have peanut allergies, et cetera, et cetera. But in general, good foods are good for everybody. Bad foods are bad for everybody. It's just a matter of degree. So some people, the same good food is even better than other people. And some bad foods are particularly bad for some people. But it's not like bad foods are good for some people. Good foods are, we like to hear good news about our bad habits. And so we'd love to be like, because of your, unique biochemical, whatever, genetic signature, you should be eating X. It's just not how biology works. And now if, getting a cheek swab or a blood sample and some fancy digital readout gets you to do healthy things that you wouldn't otherwise do, great. If I get a swab and say, based on your unique genetics, you should eat dark green leafy vegetables. And you're like, oh, okay. And you start eating greens. Well, then, yeah, you could justify the cost of some $1,000 test, but it's like, you could have just eat your grains, but people don't like generic advice. And the industry knows this. People want personalized advice. And so they'll pay through the teeth for it. And anything people will pay through the teeth for, oh my God, businesses will jump up and claim that they have some kind of, but it's just really not true. And so I did a video on it, on personalized nutrition, based on your, genetics, you may be like 3% higher or lower risk for colorectal cancer. But so if you're 3% higher risk, what should you do? Eat healthy. If you're 3% lower risk, what should you do? Eat healthy. It's like, it doesn't really make any sense to do anything different. Unless it's a motivator. Unless that's the only way you're going to eat healthy, then okay, go for it.
I think every day we are coming out with new research, and it is really challenging for consumers and patients and clients to be able to sort throughout all of that new nutrition information, especially when it's quite conflicting. I think what it comes down to is remembering, number one, even though those headlines might really praise one thing one day and demonize it the next day, at the end of the day, most diets probably agree on a lot of things. And most of that is what a plant-based diet is. That a diet that is high in fruits and vegetables, 100% whole grains, that's devoid of animal products, and is generally low in our processed foods that are high in added sugars, salts, and added fats. When we have that diet in general, it's going to be health promoting.
Our bodies are so infinitely wise in the way that our bodies manage nutrition. And then we have this entire microbiome of 100 trillion bacteria and archaea and protozoa and viruses, this entire community that lives in our gut that also manages some of those nutrients and produces some of those nutrients. A healthy microbiome actually helps to balance the number of calories that you're absorbing from your food. The bacteria will, and I don't even think we understand how this happens, but they will absorb a percentage of the calories from the food and remove some of the other calories. They help to balance the amount of estrogen that's reabsorbed and excrete some of the other estrogen. They balance cholesterol reabsorption. They produce vitamins like vitamin K and even some vitamin B12. And our gut produces those beautiful short-chain fatty acids, which are the byproducts of the bacteria digesting the fiber from the food that our bodies wouldn't even digest. And so these byproducts then circulate throughout our entire body, turning off inflammatory switches, circulating to our brain, enhancing cognition, turning off appetite, turning on genes that grow blood vessels into damaged tissue, this host of benefits from this healthy microbiome. And our body stores so many nutrients as well. And so between the balance of our body's wisdom and the healthy microbiome, there's this optimization that occurs with aging that I think we really don't understand or have not even studied yet.
In today's era of often overwhelming and often conflicting nutrition advice online and in the media, one clear takeaway stands out from our experts. Embrace a diverse array of whole plant foods.
And that diversity is really key. There isn't any one single food that we should all be eating lots and lots of. We need a diversity of whole plant foods to truly create a symphony of wellness.
For me, my take-home point is we have to make sure that we're diversifying. And so when we diversify our food intake, that means I'm having legumes, I'm having green leafy vegetables, I'm having the fiber, I'm having the micronutrients, the phytonutrients, I'm having my berries, I'm having my seeds, that these are the things I will begin to make sure I get in the adequate amounts of nutrients. And so it becomes important to pay attention to that. And perhaps I do have to pay attention to some of the macronutrients a bit more as I get older, but that's through diversification.
One way to kind of simplify this with RDAs and looking at those basic needs, one is to understand the RDAs were really created to advocate against diseases of deficiency, not for optimized health. And much of that came out of the fact that people were eating unhealthy diets based on processed food and animal products. So the safest way to meet all of your RDAs is to eat a wide variety of plants every single day. You'll meet all the RDAs for minerals, for vitamins with the exception of vitamin B12 and vitamin D. RDAs for protein, easily met with a wonderful, robust, whole food plant-based diet. Dietary fat from wonderful sources, avocados, a handful of nuts or seeds every day. And carbohydrates. People are afraid of carbohydrates, the no-carb thing, carbs are bad, but complex carbohydrates in plants, in a plant-based diet, is actually 70% carbohydrates are the fuel of the body. It's what runs the brain, it's what runs the heart, it's what runs the muscles, and so you have the correct energy supply for the body. So you get everything you need from a plant-based diet. An animal-based diet or the Western diet, you obviously are going to have deficiencies. Minerals, vitamins, phytochemicals, fiber, and so those people, the people on a Western diet, actually need to be concerned about the RDAs. When you're eating enough calories from a plant-based diet, as you scale it developmentally and based upon your activity levels, as the calorie content goes up, so do the micronutrients and macronutrients. And it perfectly scales to the needs of your life based on where you are. Pregnancy calories go up and supplies all the necessary needs. So it makes it simple. We don't have to chase things with lab tests.
Right.
We just create a big, beautiful, bright plate with lots of fruits and vegetables, trying to get 30 to 40 different plants in a week. We eat to be able to go and be and do, and to share our gift and engage in life. And our life is not about our food. And if we overcomplicate nutrition, if nobody can measure their food every day. And it's not a sustainable way to think about food. Measuring protein, measuring, minerals and antioxidants. And so that's the beauty of a plant-based diet. It meets and is all of our needs and is sufficient in every way. So we don't have to think about it. We enjoy this beautiful meal. It fulfills every need that we have. And then we can just move forward in life. When we stress about what we're eating, it actually creates inflammation, disrupts our microbiome, causes issues, activates our hunger centers to crave carbohydrates, disrupts our sleep. So even, trying to do what's right or stressing to do what's right in food can counteract the very benefit of what you're trying to do with food. So it's moving peacefully into a whole food plant-based diet, realizing it's going to supply everything that you need.
If you look at the literature, there are hundreds of randomized controlled trials showing us that a whole food plant-based diet or a plant predominant diet is cardioprotective. It prevents colon polyps and colon cancer. It lowers your, hemoglobin A1C and is good for your endocrine system and to prevent obesity and diabetes. I mean, really, we don't really have to go far to get the literature and the science. It's right there.
My patients get healthy as they pursue a truly healthy plant-based diet and healthy lifestyle changes, enough sleep, a daily walk, etc. And to see people get healthy right in front of your eyes is one of the greatest joys any physician could desire. So there's, they say once you look behind the curtain, you can't pretend you don't know what's behind the curtain, and there's nothing else to do at this point outside of answer the highest calling as a physician, which is what I've been trying to do. And now we're trying to reach young medical students with that message. And so that's been the focus of my career in recent years through our Moving Medicine Forward initiative.
It's stunning how effective food can be. It has the power to heal lives, disrupt patterns of chronic illness, save families and even nations from medical cost-related bankruptcy, and enhance the well-being of entire communities.
And it's empowering to know it doesn't end there. Every food choice you make has ripple effects impacting people, communities, and ecosystems around the world. When you stop supporting companies whose practices don't align with your values and instead choose food and farmers that contribute to a healthier, more ethical, and sustainable world, you become a part of the solution. Knowing you're making a difference can truly feel rewarding.
In our next episode, we'll dive deeper into where our food comes from and why it matters more than you may have ever imagined. Some of what you'll discover is truly eye-opening. Every bite we take is shaping our health. And as you'll see, it's also shaping the health of life on Earth. No matter where you come from or what you've been through, the simple truth is that you are meant to thrive. You deserve boundless energy, a clear mind, and a lean and healthy body. You deserve to feel confident and clear about what you eat and why. The Food Revolution Summit is packed with insights, and trying to catch and absorb all of them in 1 week can be hard. That's why we created the Empowerment Package. With your Empowerment Package, you can own the entire summit, plus all the transcripts and loads of bonus materials for life. Absorb this world-changing material at a pace that's comfortable and easy for you. Join the movement. Support the food revolution. Buy your Empowerment Package today. Well, thank you so much for sharing in that powerful episode. To express your opinions on what you've been hearing and find out what others are saying, you can keep on posting, engaging, and sharing on the comment section of the broadcast page. And of course, you can refresh the comments with the button provided there to see the most recent ones that have been submitted. Ray Jean said, wow, so much powerful information here today. Thank you so much for this summit. Yes, Ray Jean. And we are so blessed. The speakers in the summit are so brilliant, and they are collectively, they've dedicated, centuries of life and work and research to this. And they're drawing on a huge body of medical knowledge conducted by tens, if not hundreds of thousands of researchers all around the world. And we get to distill all that and capture all that and harvest all that to helpfully help us make wiser, healthier choices. Robin said, "It's nice to have somewhere to go to get trusted and reliable information on how to help yourself outside of your doctor's office. Unfortunately, my oncologist knows nothing about the nutrition side of cancer and prevention. She is simply focused on managing symptoms and treatment. Likewise, my nutritionist is not versed in cancer. She's knowledgeable about food, but from the perspective of calories and weight loss and fat loss and muscle retaining subjects. I feel that this summit empowers me to not only be more knowledgeable and be able to help myself outside of prescription medications, but puts me in the driver's seat on managing my cancer in a natural way. Thank you so much for all the information and continuing to be such a trusted and viable source for those of us without direction." Robin, thank you for sharing. And I know it can be so frustrating. We have a medical industry that often acts as if food didn't matter, and we've got a food industry that often acts as if health didn't matter, and even a nutritionist can wind up just focusing on weight loss or weight gain or sort of an isolated perspective that doesn't look at the body as a whole. And we really are working to change that, aren't we? To look at our body as part of an ecosystem of choices. And so how you eat and how you think and how you sleep and your web of relationships and how you move, it's all connected. And when you choose to make your chain, every weak link in your chain stronger, the whole gets stronger. I'm sorry you're going through cancer, Robin, and I'm glad that you're getting some support along the way from the individuals who can help you with their specialty, but also from a more holistic perspective that can hopefully empower you for full healing on every level. We are sending you lots of love and blessings and best wishes every step of the way. Gita said, 3 to 5 milligrams of creatine monohydrate is good for brain and bone health. But do I need a prescription to get it? Gita, thanks for asking. You do not need a prescription to get creatine monohydrate, but it is important to choose a safe, high-quality source. Some brands have been found to be contaminated with heavy metals and other harmful substances. In fact, there was one study which found contaminants in 44% of the creatine supplement samples tested. This included mercury and lead. To avoid this, you want to look for creatine supplements that are independently tested, ideally with results that are published on the company's website and or products that are USP verified. Here at FRN, we like the brand Complement. They offer a third-party tested high-quality creatine monohydrate. It's formulated to support brain and reproductive health and muscle recovery and energy and overall longevity. Every batch is tested for pollutants and heavy metals and harmful pathogens, and they post the results openly on their website. You can learn more about it and purchase it if you wish at foodrevolution.org/creatine. Again, that's foodrevolution.org/creatine. And bonus, if you make a purchase there, Complement will give you their best price, and they'll make a contribution to support FRN's work as well. Karen said, thanks for all that you do. When supplements are recommended, the experts advise to get them from a reliable source. Can you give us tips on how to determine if the supplement we are purchasing is quality and reliable? Well, Karen, thank you for asking. So when it comes to supplements, a few things can help you determine whether a product is quality and reliable. One is you want to look for third-party testing to confirm purity and potency. Some products do not hold up under either of these metrics. Ideally, companies will publish their results so you can see them for yourself. You also want to check for certifications like USP, which stands for United States Pharmacopoeia. This verifies quality and purity and consistency. Or NSF, which is an independent nonprofit that tests for safety and label accuracy and good manufacturing practices. And you also want to choose brands that are transparent about their sourcing and ingredients and testing. You want to look at the supplement facts. You want to see how much they are, again, third-party verified. And if you know where they're sourcing, that can be helpful. An awful lot of supplement companies get their products from China. Now, that might be okay, it might not be okay, but I can tell you that China does not have the level of rigor of quality assurance that might be found in the United States or Canada or Europe or many other countries. It's hit or miss, but there could be heavy metals or other contaminants. There could be corners cut in the production process. And so if you can find out where their products are sourced, that's another good thing to know about, and that can build a little more trust in a brand. Now, some things literally are not available except from certain countries, and so they may have to deal with that. But to the extent that you can find reliable sourcing, I think that is a big step up and a big note of greater trust. Debbie said, Ocean, I'm concerned if too much nuts or seeds are hard for digestion, especially if you're elderly. I remember Dr. Hyman stating you needed to soak them, but I fear good nutrition might be lost if it's washed out with the water. Debbie, thank you for asking. So nuts and seeds can absolutely be part of a healthy diet and probably should be, even as we get older. Some people do find them a bit harder to digest, and this is partly because they contain compounds like phytic acid and enzyme inhibitors that can reduce mineral absorption or make digestion more challenging for some people. Not everybody, but some people. Soaking nuts and seeds is a great strategy that can help. It reduces some of these compounds. It can make nutrients more bioavailable. It can improve digestibility. And it can even, in some cases, start the sprouting process, which creates a whole other set of wonderful mechanisms in the nut or in a seed. A small amount of water-soluble nutrients might be lost in the soaking water, but the overall nutrition of the nuts and seeds remains intact and, again, is probably more bioavailable. In fact, the benefit of better absorption usually vastly outweighs any minor nutrient loss. If soaking feels like too much effort, other options include enjoying nut butters or ground seeds, which are often gentler on digestion. That said, because nuts and seeds are naturally high in fat, they can still be a challenge for people to digest, whether they're soaked or eaten whole or ground or blended. So pay attention to how your body responds. Sometimes moderation is helpful. Go for maybe a tablespoon a day or a couple tablespoons a day. Maybe work your way up a bit from there. And of course, nuts and seeds are high in calories. So if you're somebody who's really trying to restrict calories, pay attention to that. But for most people, nuts and seeds can be a wonderful part of a healthy diet, soaked or not, and bonus points for soaking. Leslie said, hello, Ocean and team. I've learned so much listening to these episodes. I'm also feeling overwhelmed at knowing exactly where to start to transition to a plant-based diet. My husband was diagnosed 2 years ago with dementia, and it does run in his family. He's been a sugar addict most of his life, but also completed 5 Ironman triathlons. Wow! I think this exercise actually kept him from getting dementia before the age of 70. He dislikes almost all vegetables and eats very little fruit, but his tastes are changing due to the disease. I'd like to start preparing more nutritious recipes for us both. Where would be a good place to start? Well, Leslie, thank you for asking, and so sorry that you and your husband are needing to deal with this. Hopefully you got to see episode 2 where we did discuss dementia and of course looked at some promising research, particularly with the Ornish work on that, and there are other bodies of work as well showing that early on the disease could be potentially improved, or at least progression could be slowed with diet and lifestyle changes. And folks, I do think this is an important point, that you cannot out-exercise a bad diet. Of course, every pillar of lifestyle medicine is key, and there's no question that exercise helps, right? But even running 5 Ironman triathlons isn't enough to make up for the negative effects that might come from unhealthy nutrition. And by the way, all the pillars are important. If you're in chronic stress, constant fights with your spouse, feeling unsafe in your home, if you're living with massive environmental contamination, if you're smoking cigarettes every day, then even if you're exercising a bunch and eating great food, you're still going to struggle. So all the things are important. Sometimes doing well in one place can help make up for other challenges, but in general, it's best to look at it as a whole and try to create as much health and vitality everywhere that you can. And by the way, even if you do everything perfectly, there's still a risk. there's still going to be some issues that are going to happen in life because there's environmental factors, genetic factors, other factors completely beyond our control. You just do the best you can with what you got. Make the most you can of what you have, and hopefully, you'll be able to enjoy a vibrant, thriving life and do what you were born to do, which is all that any of us could really ask for, I think. So, Leslie, we want to support you and your husband in your journey in enjoying healthy food and healthy recipes. So we're going to gift you with a copy of Real Superfoods. This is everyday ingredients to elevate your health. It's one of FRN's fabulous and popular cookbooks that Nicole and I wrote together. And so we'll be in touch with you, and the publisher house will send you a copy. Congratulations. I hope you enjoy it. Real Superfoods, by the way, focuses on superfoods that are super nutritious, super accessible, super affordable, and super delicious when you know what to do with them, which is why it's a cookbook. I know you'll enjoy it and put it to good use. Valerie said, with the effects of soy on lowering the level of estrogen in the body, what about postmenopausal women who are already finding their levels are low? Well, Valerie, thank you for this thoughtful question. It comes up a lot, and I'm so glad you asked. So there's a lot of confusion out there about soy and estrogen, especially for postmenopausal women. Let me be really clear about this. Soy doesn't lower estrogen levels per se. It contains compounds called isoflavones, which are phytoestrogens. These are plant compounds that weakly mimic estrogen in the body. But they don't behave exactly like human estrogen. In fact, in low estrogen environments, they like after menopause, they may actually gently support estrogen activity by binding to receptors, but in a much milder way than the body's own estrogen or hormone replacement therapy. The research so far is showing us that moderate soy consumption, especially from whole soy foods like tofu and tempeh and edamame and soy milk, is not only safe for postmenopausal women, but might offer real benefits. These include reduced hot flashes, bone support, and maybe even protection against hormone-related cancers. It's kind of like a Goldilocks principle. It seems that soy tends to help the body to get more estrogen effects when it needs them and less estrogen effects when it's got too much. Remarkable. Of course, everybody's body is unique, but for most women, enjoying 1 or 2 servings of whole soy foods per day can be a healthy and supportive part of a plant-powered lifestyle. And of course, it also gives you lots of protein and other phytonutrients that are beneficial for overall well-being. And these are particularly important in menopause and beyond. Lisa said, I have several uterine fibroids, and I've been told that because of the estrogen in soy, eating soy can increase the size of the fibroid, so I've avoided soy due to this. I've been told that if I eat soy, I should make sure it's organic. Should soy be organic, and does the estrogen in soy contribute to increase in the size of fibroids? Lisa, thank you for your question. So as we were just discussing, soy contains phytoestrogens, specifically isoflavones, which are plant compounds that can weakly mimic estrogen in the body, but they don't act the same as the estrogen our bodies produce or that might come from hormone replacement therapy, HRT. Studies suggest that moderate consumption of whole soy foods, again, like tofu and tempeh and edamame and soy milk, does not appear to increase fibroid growth and in some cases may have a protective effect. That's what we've seen from the actual research done. That said, everybody's situation is unique, and if you've noticed personal sensitivity or you're not sure, it might be wise to go slowly or to pay attention and see how your body responds. As for whether soy should be organic, ideally yes. Most non-organic soy in the US is genetically engineered, and it may come with pesticide residues like glyphosate, which is an endocrine disrupting compound and a probable carcinogen. So choosing organic helps you avoid that exposure, and it supports a cleaner food system overall. That said, I do not think personally that going 100% organic is a make or break situation. If you're at a restaurant and there's some tofu in your soup and it wasn't made from organically grown soybeans, that doesn't mean you shouldn't eat the tofu. The soup's probably still going to be healthier with that tofu than without it. But when possible, going organic is a smart move, and we strongly encourage it. You know, soy has been unfairly blamed for all kinds of hormone-related issues, but unfairly. When it's consumed in moderation and in whole food form, especially when it's organically grown, it can be a part of a health-supportive and plant-based diet. Of course, listen to your body and work with your healthcare team, but know that the research tells us soy does not deserve the bad rap that it is so often given. David said, Ocean, where do you purchase your cooking pots, water bottles, drinking glasses, food storage containers, cooking utensils, etc.? Well, David, we have an article on this. If you go to foodrevolution.org and type 27 tools, you'll find resources for pretty much everything you just named with links. Again, that's foodrevolution.org, and then type in the search bar 27, the number 27, tools, and that'll pull the article right up. If you go to foodrevolution.org and type cookware, you'll find a recent article we wrote about pots and pans in specific. But 27 tools is what you put in the search bar after foodrevolution.org if you want to find a more comprehensive list of all the things that you named. Dahlia said there's much discussion about supplementing with B12, omegas, but what about the lesser known nutrition such as choline and taurine, which vegan diets don't provide much of? Thank you for all your guidance. Well, Dahlia, thank you for your thoughtful question. It's great that you're thinking beyond just B12 and omega-3s, and you're right, choline and taurine are less often talked about, and they are important to understand. So let's talk about them now. So choline plays a key role in brain function, in liver health, and in cell structure. You need it, and it is helpful in Alzheimer's prevention. It's true that plant-based diets are typically lower in choline, but most people can meet their needs with foods like broccoli, quinoa, soy, and other beans, and especially cruciferous vegetables. It's also worth noting that high intake of choline from animal sources like eggs can lead to elevated levels of TMAO, or trimethylamine and oxide, which is a compound that, as we've been discussing, is linked to increased cardiovascular risk. So getting enough choline from plant foods or from moderate supplementation may offer a better balance of benefits without the downsides. And in general, we don't see choline supplementation being worth the risks because it can increase TMAO levels, and most people can get enough if their diet's based around whole plant foods, and again, especially including cruciferous vegetables as well as quinoa and legumes. Now, taurine is a little different. It's not considered essential because our bodies can make it from other amino acids, especially methionine and cysteine, assuming we're getting enough overall protein. So for most people, eating a varied and adequate plant-based diet, taurine levels are likely going to be just fine. But for people who are low in protein overall, especially older adults or people recovering from illness, taurine synthesis could be lower and supplementation might be beneficial. This is another reason why getting enough protein overall is important, and especially a point of consciousness on a plant-based diet. Not something to stress out about, just something to be aware of. So again, thoughtful, nutrient-dense eating, along with a few smart supplements when needed, can absolutely support long-term health. Your awareness is already helping you make empowered and informed choices. Thanks for asking. Jen said, Ocean, thanks for the summit. I'm learning a lot about plant-based food for healing the body. I've been taking many notes, wishing I could purchase this program, unable to do. There must be many hidden gems in there. I'm reversing an autoimmune condition that I've struggled with my whole life. Jan, thank you for reaching out. We're so glad you're here and taking notes and participating in the summit. I'm sorry to hear about the autoimmune condition that you're struggling with. We would love to support you. And so we're going to be gifting you with an empowerment package. You're now going to have all of the recordings and transcripts for life of every episode and every expert interview. And I want to especially encourage you to check out the interview with Dr. Brooke Goldner on autoimmune health. I think you will find it fascinating, potentially even life-changing. You may even want to go deeper and explore one of Brooke's programs. She's fantastic. I know you'll put this to good use, and congratulations on being a new empowerment package owner. Our team will follow up with you. Hyacinth wrote, good morning to all. Ocean, I've been going back and forth Can't get myself to keep on going the right way. I need help. I'd love to stay ahead of things, but it's hard, and when you're alone makes it even harder. I just wish I had some help. I want to help some people as well, but I need to be on track, and then I can be there for someone. Is there any way I can get some assistance? I'm on vacation with family, and the way everyone eats. I don't eat meat, but they all do. I love cooking a lot, just trying to cook healthy. They do like what I cook, but don't listen to me. They need to listen to your program. Help needed. Thanks. Well, Hyacinth, thank you for participating from your vacation, and I'm sorry that this is a challenge for you to get going, and I hear you're really asking for help. We want to support you. So we're going to gift you with an empowerment package as well. You'll have the entire summit for life. You can share it with your loved ones if they're open. If they're not, don't shove it down their throats. Just keep practicing yourself as best you can. Ask them for help and respect of your journey and give it to them as well. I find that's often really helpful in mixed families. When nobody tries to shove ideology down anyone's throat, the question is, can we all respect each other to make the choices that feel best to us? I'm concerned about my health. I think this is going to help me. Can I ask for your support? And I'll support you. I promise I won't shame you or should you or blame you or judge you or criticize you or try to force you to be like me. But can you let me be me and support me in this path? That's a beautiful statement to say to a loved one. Most of the time, people who truly love you will say yes to that. And then over time, maybe they'll listen more or enjoy some of the food that you make for them. Along with the empowerment package, you'll have all the recipes from the summit and lots of great resources. And I want to encourage you, if you can, to consider trying out Whole Life Club. Empowerment package owners get access to a special opportunity to join in for a 30-day trial, and then to be able to join in for an ongoing discount after that. And that is really the place where you're going to get ongoing support to implement, to sustain, and then to optimize your healthy lifestyle long term. There's community. There's over 1,400 recipes. There's an incredible bunch of live events, opportunity to connect with others and keep on learning. There's monthly live action hours with guest experts and so many other great resources. So Hyacinth, I hope that will be helpful to you. If you're able to join Whole Life Club, it'll be great. In any case, you got an empowerment package coming your way. Our team will be in touch. Congratulations, and congratulations to all of our other new empowerment package owners, including Lynn from Massachusetts, Annie from Great Britain, Gerald from California, Lynn from South Africa, Sarah from Florida, Mary from New York, Tammy from Virginia, Thomas from North Carolina, Pamela from Australia, Dee from Ireland. Thank you all so much for investing in your health and investing in our mission and choosing to get empowered and get informed and own it all for life. We're so grateful to you, and we promise we will use your investment in our work to keep spreading the food revolution and inspiring more people. Lisa said, after watching every episode this week, I'm convinced this is the path for me, but I'm clueless how to start. Yikes. Well, Lisa, thank you for being here, and I want to say welcome. You're not alone in feeling a little overwhelmed at the beginning. It's super normal to have that yikes moment when you decide to make a big change. But the good news is you don't have to do it all at once. So start simple. Maybe pick one meal a day, like breakfast, and make it plant-based. Think about something like oatmeal with berries and a sprinkling of flax and hemp seed on top, or a smoothie with greens and fruit and plant milk. Then build a small rotation of easy meals that you enjoy. Maybe it's a hearty soup and a stir fry, or a grain bowl with beans and roasted vegetables. Focus on what tastes good and feels good in your body and is good for you. This isn't about being perfect. It's about moving forward one delicious step at a time. And once you get one thing you like, you make it again the next week. And you gradually build out what I like to call your starting rotation with all-star players. And if you can, I encourage you to consider Whole Life Club. Again, it's our ongoing support community, and you'll get amazing recipes every week and practical tools and a community of support and weekly live events and encouragement to help you stay on track. It's kind of like having a team in your corner to cheer you on and walk the path with you. You've already said yes to this journey. Now, the key thing is keep going. Keep reaching out for support. Keep finding the resources that can help you, knowing FRN is here with you. If you stay on our email list, we'll keep sending you resources every day or two. You've got this. You know, every year, Food Revolution Network's plant-based coaching certificate program equips hundreds of passionate people with the tools to make a real impact. We want to spread the food revolution in every community all around the globe, and we want to empower a new generation of leaders and champions and advocates. And one of our graduates is Adrienne Davis from Anderson, Indiana. In 2016, Adrienne was suffering from severe panic attacks. They were so intense, she thought she was having a heart attack. After switching to a whole food plant-based diet, Adrienne's panic attacks totally disappeared. Inspired by her own healing and her husband's reversal of type 2 diabetes, Adrienne joined our plant-based coaching certificate program. This is her story.
There are so many people who are sick today, and they're just not able to live a fulfilling life. And I want this world to be full of healthy people. Hi, my name is Adrienne Davis, and I'm from Anderson, Indiana. In 2016, I started having really bad panic attacks, like to the point where I thought I was having a heart attack. I had no idea what was going on with me. I was miserable, and because of plant-based nutrition, I was able to eliminate my panic attacks completely. And I haven't had them since. So it was just like, oh my gosh, like this is amazing. I'm sold on this lifestyle. I will encourage anything else. And literally that was in June 14th of 2020. So I just passed my 4-year mark of being medication free. So I have been coaching people with type 2 diabetes and pre-diabetes online, but I'm now branching out to do some things in my local community. Well, my first official client was my husband. In 2018, when I had just met him, he had just been diagnosed a few months prior to that with type 2 diabetes, and I had already transitioned to being more plant-based as a vegetarian. That's the way I started. He was a big meat eater, so when I told him, like, I think you should stop eating meat, and try to see if you can reverse your diabetes, and he just looked at me like I was crazy, and he wanted no part of that. I kind of convinced him, and he finally decided to try it for 30 days. And he made such amazing progress in that 30 days. He lost weight, his A1C levels went down, his blood pressure went down. The doctor was actually pretty shocked. And so he stuck with it, and he hasn't eaten meat since. The plant-based coaching certification taught me not only the knowledge that I needed as far as plant-based nutrition and what it can do in your body, but also how to coach clients to make the shift from their current lifestyle to this healthier lifestyle. And it also gave me the tools that I needed to go out and really spread my message and get clients to come and work with me. Like, after I went through the coaching program, doors started opening. I had already gained tools to go and launch a webinar. I had one person hire me as their coach from that webinar. And I just gained confidence. I just kept growing my skills and gaining the confidence as I got each client that came in and started doing discovery calls with people. And it was powerful. I've done a lot of one-to-one coaching with clients, and now I'm actually getting ready to launch a group program. And I'm going to be speaking to different organizations in my local community and just really helping people understand, because so many people don't realize that there is an alternative to just taking pills and insulin for the rest of your life when you get diagnosed. And so I'm just working to help people to know that there is a different life out there that they can have. Like, just knowing that I'm able to truly help people, it feels good. There is a better life out there than sickness, and you don't have to let sickness, especially diabetes, you don't have to let it define you. There's a better way.
Thanks so much to Adrienne for that powerful story. If you feel called to become a plant-based coach, please visit certificate.foodrevolution.org. The program starts in January with our next cohort. It runs for about 6 months, and you can reserve a spot with a refundable $100 deposit, and that way you're locked in with a great price and a spot that you know will be held for you. Again, learn more at certificate.foodrevolution.org. Hope to see some of you in the plant-based coaching certificate. Melissa said, I'm now finishing up my 2nd year on a plant-based diet. About 2 years ago, I ended up in the emergency room thinking I was having a heart attack. The year had brought the decline and death of both of my parents. My stress level was through the roof. Lack of sleep and emotional upheaval. My husband and I were both following a healthy diet, we thought, but we're still eating some meat, fish, and dairy. Melissa, thank you for being here. So sorry that you have struggled so much with such intense and overwhelming stress, and thank you for being in this journey with us and hopefully getting on a path to increasing peace and ease and well-being in your body and in your life. We're sending lots of love to you and your husband. And you know, folks, one of the things that is so critical to healthy eating is good recipes. When you got recipes that you like, they make it so much more fun, because you know what? Food shouldn't taste like cardboard. It should be delicious and pleasurable and even beautiful. And it shouldn't take all day to make it, and it shouldn't cost an arm and a leg to buy it. So that's why great recipes are so great. And we got 3 more recipes of the day today from Nicole. We've got the roasted tomato basil soup. Rich and savory are 2 words that perfectly describe this wholesome recipe. The natural sweetness and robust flavor of both Roma and San Marzano tomatoes, although you can use other tomatoes if that's all you got available. It blends perfectly with roasted onion and garlic and a fresh blend of sweet basil and other classic Italian herbs and spices. And next we've got the vegan feta. If you're trying to eat more plant-based foods but missing cheese, you are not alone. This is a common complaint, but we've got good news, cheese lovers. Nuts, seeds, and even tofu can create awesome textures and flavors that are remarkably similar to dairy cheese, but with more nutrition and fewer environmental and ethical concerns. Next, we've got the spanakopita stuffed potatoes. Here you can experience the fusion of Greek flavors and comforting baked potatoes when you stuff tender potatoes with a mash of green leafy spinach, savory vegan feta, and creamy cashew butter, all baked until golden. This can be a great appetizer or even a delightful main course for a cozy dinner. It's time for you to elevate your baked potato game. All right, well, all these recipes are available, of course, throughout the summit, and Empowerment Package owners will have them for life. Sylvia said, first of all, thank you for all your hard work and for enlightening all of us on this road with amazing information, tips, and hope. I was diagnosed with Sjogren's in 2008 here in Jackson, Wyoming, and unfortunately at that time my doctor said I could not do anything about it. My symptoms have been increasing: fatigue, dry mouth, excessive dry eyes, joint pain, neck pain, arthritis, etc. I've gone to different specialists in Salt Lake City, in Utah, Idaho Falls. None of them have given me any results. I've been following you and your dad, my condolences to you, for about 4 years now. I've not really heard too much about Sjogren's. Is there any way you can help me get some answers as to how I can help myself on this journey? I know food is the way to go, but would like to see if you can give me any other advice. Thanks for all you and your team do. Well, Sylvia, thank you so much for your kind words and walking this path with us over the years. And I want to acknowledge the courage it takes to keep seeking answers, to keep cultivating hope, especially when you've been living with something like Sjogren's syndrome for so long, and the medical community is basically telling you they don't have any answers. I'm sorry that the medical system has left you feeling alone in this, and I want to say you're absolutely right that food matters. Sjogren's, of course, is a complex autoimmune condition. Many people find, though, that a whole foods plant-powered diet that's rich in antioxidants and fiber and anti-inflammatory compounds can help reduce symptoms and flare-ups and overall immune balance. So we're talking about foods like berries, leafy greens, flax and chia seeds, turmeric, hemp, all of which may offer real benefits. Gut health also plays a big role in autoimmune conditions, so you want to feed your microbiome with prebiotic-rich foods and possibly, if you can tolerate them, fermented foods. It's also worth exploring stress-reducing tools like mindfulness, gentle movement, and prioritizing restorative sleep, because all of this can support healthy immune regulation. You might also want to look into working with a plant-based or functional medicine practitioner, even virtually, who has experience with autoimmune conditions. You can find plant-based healthcare providers if you go to plantrition.org. There's a directory there of plant-based or whole foods friendly plant-based healthcare providers, including coaches, and you might find somebody that you'd want to work with in that directory. Again, that's plantrition.org. And I would encourage you, if you're able, to join Whole Life Club, where we offer community and recipes and ongoing guidance to help people stay inspired and to have support. You know, community support is so important, and it sounds like you're feeling a little isolated in this journey. You also may be able to find support groups for other people dealing with Sjogren's, which can be particularly meaningful. Most likely you would find those online, but it can be helpful. And there are tools being experimented with, especially with something that isn't super common. It takes a while sometimes for breakthroughs to become credible in the mainstream medical world, but there may already be dozens and dozens of people that have found benefit from something. So good to explore and keep learning what resources are out there. And again, a functional medicine practitioner may be somebody who's a little more outside the box, so to speak. You could Google functional medicine practitioner and see what you can find. A lot of them are not particularly plant-based necessarily, but some are. But that's where you could find interesting gadgets and tools that maybe aren't mainstream yet, but are being tested and found helpful in smaller pockets. You're not alone. We're cheering you on every step of the way and in sending you our love and also our comfort when there is less ideal due to its high oxalate content, which can reduce your absorption. Broccoli and tahini from sesame seeds and also almonds and fortified plant milks are also good contributors. Tofu made with calcium sulfate can also be great. Gives you a lot of calcium, as well as calcium fortified orange juice. It's helpful to get calcium with food as much as possible, so if you're going to take a supplement, ideally have it with food. Renee said, I don't understand why it's so hard to convince people to eat healthy. I've sent these sessions to my friends. They just don't get it. Renee, I feel you. When you care deeply and you know how powerful healthy eating can be, it's natural to want to share it with the people you love. And it can be really frustrating when they just don't seem to hear or take it in. But here's the thing. Food isn't just fuel. It's also culture. It's comfort. It's family tradition, identity, and emotion. Changing how we eat isn't just about information. It's about transformation. And that can take time and readiness and often a personal why. So keep on planting seeds. Share what has inspired you. Let them see the energy and the hope and hopefully the joy and vitality that this path brings into your life. And trust that even if it doesn't land right away, your example matters. Sometimes it's not a single conversation that changes someone. It's 100 small touches that add up over time. So stay kind and stay patient. And remember, you're doing beautiful work just by walking this path with heart. Every day of this summit, we have featured expert interviews for those of you who want to go deeper into these topics or understand more. And today we've got 3 brilliant interviews with Dr. Daphne Bascom on the longevity blueprint, nutrition and exercise for health, resilience, and lifelong vitality. We've got an interview with Dr. Gemma Newman on the healing power of lifestyle medicine, how gratitude, connection, and conscious food choices can transform your health. And we've got Dr. Monisha Benote on ancient wisdom, modern science, diet, longevity, and the power to prevent disease. All of these are available until we start tomorrow's broadcast. And for empowerment package owners, you'll have them for life. Well, friends, we're approaching the end of day 7 of the Food Revolution Summit docuseries. Again, you can express your opinions. You can share your breakthroughs and epiphanies. You can respond to others. You can share your questions in the comment section on the broadcast page. Make sure to refresh the comments with the button provided there so you can see the most recent ones that have been submitted. Come on back and join us tomorrow for our last day. It's going to be epic. We're going to go live at 7:45 Pacific time, 10:45 Eastern, 2:45 p.m. GMT, and we'll start rolling episode 8 at 11 Eastern Time. The topic is From Farm to Fork, where your food comes from and why it matters a lot. You know, the source of our food has a huge impact on its quality and its safety. Our food choices also have a huge impact on the world around us. In fact, we can reduce deforestation and pollution, we can say no to animal cruelty, we can take a bite out of world hunger, we can improve public health. Join us as we explore the critical connection between our food choices and the world that we share, and discover how each of us can be a part of the solution. Tomorrow is going to be huge. In fact, I will say for many of you, it could be the most profound episode in the entire summit. So please come on back and join us then. And you know, one of the things I love about food is that it's very social. This Food Revolution Summit has been as well. As you've probably noticed, we put a comments area on the broadcast page and you can share and engage there. And I love how people are participating. And if you want to take the next step with us and take it all home for life, you may want to take advantage of the summit sale price for the empowerment package. It's an honor and a joy to share this journey with all of you, and I cannot wait for our finale tomorrow. It's going to be awesome. In the meanwhile, enjoy some delicious healthy food. Maybe check out today's recipes of the day and today's expert interviews and the replay when it goes up as soon as we finish here today. We are wishing you health and vitality. This is Ocean Robbins signing off from day 7 in the Food Revolution Summit. Looking forward to day 8 tomorrow. And here's a peek at what's coming up. Do you know where your food comes from and why it matters so much? Join us as we follow the journey of food from farm to fork, exploring how what we grow and how we grow it shapes the health of our bodies, our communities, and our planet.
So much of it is hidden from us. Where food comes from, how it's made, how it's accessed, who makes it.
Food is currently the primary source of environmental degradation. 30% of climate, 70% of fresh water, 80% of biodiversity loss, 90% of nitrogen phosphorus pollution.
Stop and think about the choices that you're making. And think about that and understand more, educate yourself.
When you have a healthy plant, it's able to fight infections and insects and doesn't need pesticides.
We have to stop focusing on just treating the disease, but we have to move more towards health education and also creating communities that support people and help people to make many of these changes. So the benefit is that we are helping our fellow man to become healthier and better, and as a result, we all will benefit from that.
And the good news is we hear all this dire news about the climate and the earth is on fire and we don't have enough time and it's too late. But I think what I've learned about the power of a system to regenerate, it can happen much more quickly than we realize when we simply give it the right opportunity.
All things are connected. Your food choices shape the future of life. And the source of your food also shapes your health in profound ways. Join us to find out the truth about pesticides and local foods, about whether organic and fair trade are worth the cost. In this episode, you're going to discover how you can build a brighter future 3 times every day with your knife and fork. At Food Revolution Network, we believe healthy, sustainable food should be for everyone. And when you give your body the right fuel, you can thrive. Each year, the Food Revolution Summit features world-renowned experts sharing life-changing insights. But with so much wisdom, it can be hard to take it all in at once. That's why we created the Empowerment Package. Lifetime access to every summit episode and interview, full transcripts, and over $1,000 in bonuses to help you absorb and apply it all at your own pace. When you invest in an empowerment package, you're taking a stand for your health. And you're also investing in the food revolution. You're joining a movement that's changing the course of history. Plus, with every package purchased, we donate to Trees for the Future, so they can plant another organic fruit or nut tree in a low-income community. So if you want to nourish your body, support those you love, and help to heal the planet, this is your moment. Join us. Support the mission. Get your empowerment package today.